Hi.
Hi, kiddos. It's Mrs. Galani. That was Nora. I'm not going to be there today because Nina's really sick. But I
She
wanted
threw
to,
up.
make sure that you got the information that you needed. So, let me first start off by saying I'm hoping that at your tables you went through the Foreign Assistance Graphic Organizer, and I really, really hope that you were able to stop it, Nora. I really hope that you were able to um, spend some time going through and getting the accurate responses. If you want to check it against my key, it is up on Blended Schools and there for you. Just to quickly recap what it is that we've gone over the last couple days. We know that Britain has a greater military advantage over the colonists heading into the war. Militaristically, they're second to none. They had the best military in the entire world at this point. Not only did they have that well-trained army, but also a navy that the colonists flat out just didn't have. Economically speaking, they had it going on. More supplies, more weapons, so they had that resource piece definitely covered as far as what it takes to win a war. The early battles between the colonists and the British are split, but of course the colonists, after a while, will run low on supplies and soldiers because they were lacking resources. They needed a change or else the war was going to end in Britain's favor. And as you and I both know, one thing that's going to create that change is motivation coming in the form of sacrifices from Nate Hale and also inspiring words on the part of Thomas Paine. Nonetheless, there were two different sets of war strategies. Britain believed that they had the ability to separate the Continental Army, and if they could separate it from its supply line, they would be able to get the Continental Army and then indirectly the colonists to surrender. On the American standpoint, um, George Washington's hope, and I think everyone's hope, is just, hey, let's win a couple battles here. Let's win a few key battles, in fact, that'll raise our morale. And maybe, just maybe, that can encourage other European nations to want to fight alongside us in the war, showing them that there is a possibility that we could, in fact, win. You know where the turning point comes from. It comes from the Battle of Saratoga. It was a major colonial victory. And following that, the French are going to be the first ones in line. European aid will increase not just from the French, as you know, but also from the Spanish. Those colonial disadvantages then that were once present, as far as having a huge military and having the resources to get extra supplies and weapons, those are no longer concerns, and the colonists can now get their hands on those things, which is really neat. So now we have a situation where the British are up against not only the colonists, but also the French and the Spanish. At this point, the British decide that they need to take a different approach to the whole thing. The British thought, there are a lot of loyalists living in the South. They still want to be part of Great Britain. They're loyal to King George. So it was their thought that if they could win some key victories in the South and maybe rally the loyalists that were living in the South, that they would have extra manpower and extra resources to help them continue this on and carry it through for a British win. The fact that the British moved into the South even had George Washington concerned, but not to worry, there were some victories for him and the Continental Army right around the corner. The first place we're going to see that is at the Battle of Kings Mountain. Britain had recently captured Savannah and Charleston alike. Thomas Jefferson, called this Battle of Kings Mountain, turning the tide. You found 900 patriots. That means 900 people fighting for the colonists, moving in and capturing the mountains. They did anything and everything to get it off of the British. They were climbing through the woods. Some of them were going with injuries. Some were barefoot. And it was considered to be, a defining factor in the war. Luckily, we had a lot of strong American generals alongside George Washington, and they completely tormented the British. Who were some of those people? Well, we're going to take a look at the strategies they used to outsmart and outwit the British. At first, we have Daniel Morgan's strategy. I want you to take a look at what he did. You would see the volleying back and forth between the redcoats and the red. And then you would have the front line retreating. And then have your British moving up, only to find that there is a second line right there in the blue to blow away the colonists. Here, I'll show you one more time. The redcoats, of course, are in red. First line draws back, and boom, there's that second line of the colonists taking them out. Another amazing general was Francis Marion. Take a look at what was going on here. You would have the encampment of the British, and they would sneak up in guerrilla warfare style and knock out the redcoats while they were at camp. The end result of these battles in the South, Britain is going to lose a lot of them. And they don't gain support like they thought they would from the Loyalists. So they're forced to rethink their plan. That change in plan, well, the British general at this time, Cornwallis, he decides he's going to give up on the South. And he now plans to conquer Virginia, thinking that he could cut off the supply routes from the South. Of course, we know what happened with Benedict Arnold. He's going to help lead the troops that burned down Richmond and other cities. As Benedict Arnold did that, Cornwallis hoped for the same results. But here's what ends up happening. Watch the animation and then I'll explain. You have colonial ships all up and down the East Coast. The French come in to help them. And of course, the French are going to move right on in, right on into Virginia. I'll show you again. Again, the absence of colonial ships. That's the one thing they were missing, but the French come in to help them. Yeah, see, even Nora gets it. And they're going to all meet at Yorktown. Cornwallis is going to head for the Yorktown Peninsula. Even against the orders he was giving, he felt that the British Navy could supply his army from the sea. But thanks to the alliance with the French and American forces trap Cornwallis, and this is what that looks like. And he has no choice but to surrender at Yorktown. 16,000 American and French troops laid siege on Cornwallis's army of 8,000. The siege surrounding an enemy while attempting to capture them was effective. After weeks of fighting, Cornwallis has to surrender, and with this defeat, the war ends. The treaty that formally ends the American Revolution is known as the Treaty of Paris, which was ratified, meaning approved, of course, on April 15th, 1783. So, what again is the recipe that we talked about? Why did Americans win? Yeah, there is a recipe for success. We know that you need the ingredients of motivation, you need resources, and you need good leaders. But let's not discount these things either. It was their land. They were fighting where they wanted to fight. They knew it like the back of their hand. It was a home field advantage. And let's face it, the British were thousands of miles away from home. They got that aid from other nations. That was the key piece. That was the icing on the cake for the colonists, for sure. Not to mention, why is that funny?
Icing on the cake.
Yeah, I'm talking about food stuff here. Leave me alone. And then number 3, these people had patriotism. They were determined. They were willing to sacrifice. And again, it's that key motivation and that those sacrifices that are going to inspire the masses to pull out a win. So, go ahead.
Go break.
The colonies are no longer colonies and no longer under British rule. They now belong to America. They are the United States, no longer 13 colonies. The States, United States of America.
Seed.
It's a sweat.
sweat, sweet, sweat, sweet, sweet.
So go ahead and break a mental sweat. You can see it there. Answer those 5 questions. I'll see you on Monday.